Het-Heru, Namaste, Assalamu Alaikum, and Shalom. This is Kasant Ma Keperu with another broadcast for you. And this one I have titled, The Secret to Creating Anything You Want. Wow, sounds awesome, right? So I want to talk a little bit about this, the technique that you'll use to do it, and have some supporting information to back it up. Yes, I brought receipts, okay? Anyway, I've been working this past week on possessing a spirit because I'm trying to do better at a particular field, and it's going along nicely. And it's interesting to see how my behavior has changed a lot, because I've been so dedicated and working hard on this spirit, this energy or intelligence, as you want to call it, coming into me, that I've been working hard, and I'm beginning to see the fruits of my labor, which is wonderful. And, this could never happen any other way. Like today's society, they say, well, if you don't have an aptitude, if you don't have, if you're not good at something, then you're gonna have to work hard, study, and put extra time in, and that's not necessarily true. And I think, let me see if I can just Google this, because I think they're talking about, like, it says, it takes about a certain amount of time to become an expert in a particular field. Yeah, okay, let me see if I can pull that up and see what it says there. Oh, 10,000 hours of practice to become an expert in a particular field. And that's a lot of time and effort you have to dedicate to that. But the other option is, if you're into the occult, if you're a magician, if you're a magi, if you're a witch, you could work on summoning a spirit who governs that particular energy to come in you and to give you those talents. And that's how I do it. It doesn't take 10,000 hours. Oh God, that's a lot. You know what I mean? But we live in a Western world which kind of poo-poos on all that kind of stuff, because it's trapped in left brain concrete thinking. So let's talk about this whole thing now about creating anything you want. And to understand how valid this is and what I'm talking about, we have to take a step back and go back in time to a physicist by the name of Erwin or Schrödinger. And what he postulated something very interesting. He said, if you take a cat and you put a cat in a box, take a cat, put the cat in the box, and take an explosive device and put it in the box with the cat, then close the box. Now, what happens when that device goes off? Will the cat live or will it die? So that was the question. So he postulated that the cat, if you don't look in the box, keep the box closed, the cat could exist in a superimposition state, meaning the cat could be both alive and dead, and that only by opening the box and looking at the cat do you force nature to collapse to one reality only, either life or death. Does that make sense? So in other words, what Schrödinger was saying is that you're influencing the outcome by looking in the box. But if you keep the box closed and you don't look in the box, then that cat exists in that superimposition of both alive and dead. But you could take things a bit further. You can say that the cat may exist in those two states, but in parallel worlds. All right, which is an interesting thought right there. So what does that mean exactly then? Well, as the observer, reality doesn't exist apart from the observer. We know that, and that's proven by the slit experiment, where the particle is both a particle and a wave. We realize that. But more importantly, we know that as reality generating machines, as God man, God woman, we can manifest things that we want, and we can influence things. Now, when we say, there's certain people out there who are using the term influence, but we're not really influencing. We're really just causing things to vibrate to a particular reality that aligns with our beliefs. And there's a sensational book out, and it's called Synchronicity. If you guys are not really, if you don't understand what synchronicity is, I advise you really get this book by Dr. Kirby Surprise. And not only did I read the book, I went on YouTube and saw a lot of his lectures and papers that he wrote. I Googled those, and one of the things he talks about in his experiments was that he realized that there is we have an influence on the outcomes of things by 6%, the max. Okay, which is, you know, and he's validated this through his experiments. And it's pretty darn interesting. And some have even known to go beyond the 6%. Okay, and he did experiments in Vegas and other places, and there's a lot more detail around it. If you read the papers and stuff and what he records, such for example, like he's saying that the way that individuals could influence reality is helped by drinking caffeine, drinking coffee, things like that, or caffeinated soda. He doesn't know why, but he said that these events happened after consuming the caffeine. And he goes into deep, really, really deep discussions and talks about patients he's had that were influencing their reality, and things were changing around them. And the patients didn't know it was them that was doing it because they were so good at influencing reality. The patients actually thought that they were going crazy, which is why he was assigned to help them. But he started to realize that there was something going on here that was I don't want to say paranormal, but there was something out of the ordinary going on. And more importantly, these people were not crazy, that they were actually manipulating reality. So this is something that we always know, and many people in the Christian religion have known this because, they will say two or more agree, so shall it be, and that they would talk about having faith, and that faith alone God will bless you, or something will come to you, which is very similar to what Dr. Kirby Surprise talks about. But he breaks down the technique in this book, and it goes back to Schrodinger's idea of the cat in the box existing in two different states, and what state that the cat will be in really depends on you looking in that box. Now, I want to put forth some other ideas and theories here. All right. Okay. So if this is true, what Dr. Surprise is saying, this is a surprise, yeah, that we only influence it by 6%. What if you if you were to look in the box at the cat, what if it wasn't just you? Say it was you and 5 other people, a group of people that looked in at the exact same time. How does the group expectation affect the outcome of whether the cat is alive or dead? Interesting, right? Now, let's say you wanted to achieve a specific goal, and you knew that, hey, you know what? You would need more than a 6% outcome to have that goal tilt in your favor, So you would collectively get together with maybe 100 people, right? And then have them focus on the goal that you tell them to, and then that would increase the energy and the possibility of the outcome coming to your favor, because understand what truly exists are just infinite possibilities. It's only when your belief system fixates on one that it comes into being. Because I know this, I've always known this for the greater part of my life, that when I'm talking to friends and they go home or they go to work about their business and I don't see them, that they no longer exist. They're in a superimposed state of existence and non-existence, right? According to Schrodinger. So if they no longer exist, then I understand that the only way that they can exist, if I call them or go to see them at their house, because then I create them as the co-creator of all that there is. So my observation of them brings them into being, okay? And without my observation of them, they don't exist. Same thing with us, we exist. How do we exist? We can only exist through the observation of an observer. Who is the observer? It is God, Neter, Source, Yahweh, Allah, whatever you want to call him or her, Isis, So that's where I'm going with this. So the idea is, if you had the ability to bring more people into the mix to help you influence the outcome of an objective, how would that I mean, how would that flow? Meaning, how would it work? Well, it would work by taking your 6% and multiplying that by however many people that you have could greatly increase the chances of the outcome you desire. Basic, simple stuff. This is interesting. So if we know this, you can darn well sure that the ruling elite knows this power. Okay, because and the thing that why we don't apply this and we don't use this is because modern day media is doing the best job that they can to keep us away from this metaphysical mumbo jumbo, as they call it. You know, this is why there's a concerted effort globally to keep people away from non-Western religions. You know, because they don't want you to understand this type of power. And to really demonstrate this, there have also been, apart from, let's say, for example, apart from Dr. Kirby, let me see if I can pull this up as well. There were other experiments done. Hold on one second, let me see, I can pull this up there. Okay. There were other experiments done, and one of the chief experiments were for world peace. Let me see if I can get this. Okay, so let me see, pull that up. The world peace experiment. I actually had this up. World peace experiment, but now it's disappeared. Here we go. So now this is some really interesting stuff here, and I want you guys to take a look at this. This is really interesting. It says the first world peace experiment. The first world peace experiment showed a 352% increase in cooperative events in international affairs. The first world peace experiment showed how practical it is to deploy coherence, creating groups to bring peace to troubled spots around the globe. The idea was to use the amazing discovery of the super radiance effect to create windows of opportunity for governments and other agencies to negotiate peace agreements that actually worked. During a 10-week period in 1978, 1,400 specialist meditators were sent in various groups to 5 principal trouble spots around the world. All right. Let's see. The objective of the first World Peace Project was to show that enhancing brainwave coherence in the local populations by using groups of meditators was, for 1, create progress toward peace in these specific areas, 2, improves peaceful cooperation at a global level. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because the data that they collected is actually, in my mind, is remarkable. Okay, the results of the COPDAB study shows a significant shift in international relations and domestic affairs toward proportionally fewer hostile acts during the experimental period. At the same time, the data displayed more cooperative events. So if I'm looking at this correctly, you can see that by having these groups go into these trouble spots across the globe and meditate on cooperative efforts, meaning having the people work together in peace and harmony, you know, and that whole thing. You have, like here, for example, we look at domestic affairs, the hostile acts, the baseline was 46%, rounding it off. And the hostile acts decreased to 29%. And the cooperative events increased from 36% to 49%. All right. Now, in international affairs the domestic affairs showed a total of 115% increase in cooperative events. Now, the international affairs displayed a 352% increase in cooperative affairs. So for internationally, the baseline for hostile acts was 14%, which decreased to 5%. The cooperative events were 65%, which increased to 79%. So in terms of absolute frequencies, the greatest change in international affairs occurred in a number of cooperative events. So what we can take from this and understand is that we know that through the cooperative efforts of people, which is the Ma'at effect. Ma'at is the interrelation, interdependence between all things, and Ma'at is cooperation, Ma'at is relationships. We know that through the cooperation of others, when we all align our objective and our beliefs, then reality mirrors that to conform to it. This is like, and this experiment back in 1978 proved this with the 1,400 meditators. So we know for a fact that groups of individuals can influence reality or manifest a new reality. So why isn't this being used? Why isn't this power being used? Why don't we have our own think tanks or organizations that can meditate upon objectives to help people in certain situations? We know it works. And why is this experiment buried down in the internet and not many people are aware of it? I mean, you should go check it out. It's called the World Peace Experiment, and they have a lot more data here that you can look at. But the thing is that, again, most of the major Western religions are put there to control the population and to keep the population from becoming self-actualized, becoming God-man and God-woman, because you're put in an arrested development. They don't want you to grow. They don't want you to understand who you truly are, because they want you to always sit there and bow before a mediator, the priest, the priestess or whatever, or the minister, and make him or her rich so they can buy a jet and buy all this other stuff. But never is there a point to where they say you can graduate or that you become something. What are you going to become? Are you going to become a sage? What is the goal? There is no goal in Christianity and in Islam. All it is the obedience, or obeying to either what's written in the book, or obeying to a man, usually a man or a woman who's leading the congregation or leading the ministry. But with the knowledge that you have the ability to change reality and create a different reality if you align with others, and that's the safety device that Ma'at puts in place, the goddess Ma'at, because if you by yourself individually could change reality, it'd be chaos. So we have the Ma'at had to make sure that everybody was in alignment, everybody was in agreement, and that was what would change reality. And this is very similar to the Japanese mesquite monkeys, who were separated by islands, but both of the two species of monkeys were doing exactly the same thing in terms of how they washed the nuts and everything, because the information was transferred through the collective consciousness. So we know that there is a link and a tie to us all, a link from me to you, a link from me to the universe controlling what we see. Now, let me take this a step further and tell you something that's very, very interesting. Scientists realized, right? Well, they should realize that when we look at something, most things in the world mirror each other. It's kind of like a fractal, a self-generating, self-replicating organism, right? That we see like a hologram where one thing mirrors another. Like, why is it that when we look at the blood or our biology under a microscope, it looks similar to planets in the solar system? There's cells and there's things that circle around each other, muons, quarks, whatever. So we have to question, well, how do these two things match? They match because of this. When scientists are searching for answers, let's say, for example, we want to go to the center of the Earth, but we don't know what is there. Right now, according to Schrodinger's theory of quantum physics, nothing exists there at this particular moment, okay? Because what it is only possibility, so exists in a superimposition state. That's also a little bit of me throwing my theory in there as well. So the minute that if we were going into a machine that could tunnel to the center of the Earth, the minute that we got to the center of the Earth, what would we see? Well, it would align with our expectations, not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, all right? So we, as the creators or manifesting reality, would create something. And I propose to you what we would create could be part of a template reality, meaning that there's a theory of the template reality which says that there's these templates that we use as a resource and we leverage those templates to create reality. All right. So everything that's created is created from that template reality. This is just a theory I'm talking about here. And that we are constantly using things from those templates and reusing them, which is why you see duplications in life so much, you know. Why, you know, like, for example, why in most cultures, Mayan, Chinese, Egyptian, Kemetic, do we have the same holy trinity appearing? Why do we see in all these cultures, even in Europe, we're finding pyramids? It's interesting that we go and we search and we look and we see pyramids. Now, you know the whole thing about Christopher Columbus, who didn't discover America. That was Amerigo Vespucci who discovered America. So Christopher Columbus was so damn dumb, he thought that he was in India. So when he got to the coast of what he thought, you know, when he got to the coast and whatever, but the Native Americans, or whatever we're going to call them, there's a story that said that when his ship was approaching the shore, that they actually couldn't see it because they had no reference for what that was. Now, you know, and that story is very interesting because it goes back to what I was saying, is like what they did eventually see was based on the collective agreement of their belief system, the alignment of their belief system. They did eventually see it, but there was a period of time which, even though the ship was right before them, it didn't register to them. All right. So I think there's a little bit of truth to that and some racism to that, to make them seem like they're so primitive they didn't know what a boat was. But the reality is that when we search for something, no matter how much we search, there will always be something there, and it always, what we find will align with the conscious observer. It will always, there's nothing that's going to appear that doesn't align with our beliefs and expectations, because we're the ones that are creating it. You know what I mean? So that's an idea about how you are creating and manifesting a reality. Based on what is in the deep recesses of your subconscious mind, you are manifesting these things, not on a conscious level, because you could be thinking, well, I am going to be the first person to explore the rings of Saturn. But on a conscious level, you don't know what's going to be in the rings of Saturn. But when you get there, you'll say, oh, it's composed of giant ice particles and dirt particles and volcanic ash and all that. So, but what I'm saying is, again, depending on the observer, that's what will be there. Do you understand what I'm saying? And don't forget, coupled with that, all right, is the possibility, because all things exist in an infinite possibility state, you know, until you observe it, then one possibility is selected. Don't forget that those ice particles in the rings of Saturn are not, they're just there in that reality, but in another reality, you could have to where cars are in the ring of Saturn. You can have a Toyota, you got a Lexus, and I'm not kidding, because you know what, it's going to align with the observer, and this is what we have to keep in mind. So if the world peace experiment is true, if the Japanese mesquite monkey observation is true, and if Kirby Surprise's book is true, then what we're saying is that there is no limitation to what we create. The only limitation is how many people we can get to do it with us and who are in agreement with our belief system. So with that said, understand me clearly. We don't need to protest our government. We don't need to protest the police. We don't need to protest to implement policies. Because with the collective of our group, campaign, or whatever, if we get enough people, we can influence what will happen. If we want a certain law passed, get the people together to agree on it, meditate on it, go into alternate state of consciousness, trance state, to meditate on it, and watch it come to fruition. So, but the conventional thinking is that you have to go out there, protest, or form a mob and talk about, what is it, Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. Don't do that. We don't have to do that. People who do that are in an arrested development state because we have been told that we're sinners, that we're only humans, that we are totally powerless, and that our actions that are negative are being, the reason we're doing these negative things is because we're influenced by a being all-powerful is God, known as the devil or Satan. Actually, two different things, but anyway. So when you're accepting that belief system, what happens? You become powerless because you have accepted the program. But if you go back to your original programming, that you are God man, God woman, then you align yourself with people who believe in that core belief, then you guys start to become movers and shakers and masters of the universe. You start to change the foundation of reality. Well, not change reality, you shift to an alternate universe that aligns with your belief and expectations, all right? Because some people would say, you know, make this pen disappear if you can change reality, you know? Well, I can't really make it disappear, but I can have us vibrate to an alternate reality where the pen is not in your hand, it's gone. So that's what we can do. So understand the distinction there, all right? But this is the power that we have, and we're not exercising it. In fact, dormant within us, it's not just a third eye, but it's a state of Osiris. He's the god of the underworld, who Egyptologists have incorrectly and erroneously labeled god of the dead. No, the death and the underworld symbolize a metaphor, an abstract concept known as the subconscious mind. So buried in your subconscious is Osiris. What is Osiris doing? In the story of Osiris, Isis, resurrected, got Osiris, put the pieces of Osiris, because he was dismembered by his evil brother, put the pieces back together, and he was resurrected. So what is Osiris doing within us? He's waiting to be resurrected. And when he is resurrected, what happens? The part of your brain, the neocortex, becomes activated, and you're no longer operating the R complex, which is a reptilian brain, or the limbic system, which is the mammalian brain, or the seat of your emotions. You're not operating about that, but you become a higher being, which is the R complex relates to Set, his brother, evil brother. Set is who took control of Kemet, killed Osiris, and to get Osiris back onto the throne, Osiris, Horus had to do battle with Set, so that we can have Osiris rise again, just like the Christian mythology of Jesus, Mary, Jesus rose again. All right, and when you see Horus or Haru, he has the sun disk over his head, the sun. Which is why in the Bible, Jesus is often, you have the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, all of that. And so anyway, I don't want to digress, but the whole idea here is to understand that this power is dormant within us and waiting. Osiris needs to be resurrected. And when Osiris is resurrected, you're no longer acting by reflex reactions, by anger, by hostility, which is the R complex, or emotionally, in terms of emotion, overly emotional, fearful, all of that. You're operating now based on higher consciousness, because the R complex, the mammalian brain, are the subconscious, and the neocortex is the conscious state of you. Okay, the conscious mind. Sorry, the waking conscious mind. The waking conscious mind, which is symbolized by Haru, the will, the sun, waking, awake, conscious. So the moon symbolizes the unconscious and subconscious mind. So anyway, this, you see that in our culture, ancient culture, it was so rich with concepts and ideas and formulas and processes for living harmoniously with with all things in the universe, but being the master of the universe, controlling things, which is where we're supposed to be. But then comes along the 1%ers, the ruling elite, who create these religions, these Western religions, which all they do is retard our progress, put us in an arrested development infantile state, to where we don't believe we can do anything to influence anything, and we always have to appeal to an exterior force to get things done. It's bogus. Get the book. Get the book. Read. Research. The study. World Peace Experiment. Research also the Japanese mesquite monkeys, the 100 monkey principle. This is real, people. This is real. Why aren't we using this to stop crimes? Put it in to pedophilia or pedophiles. Put it in to, was it sexual harassment in corporations. Court system is corrupt. Going to HR and reporting stuff is worth waste your time. Tune into your power. You want that new house? You want that new car? Here you go. Work the formula. Don't go to your church and throw money in the collection plate and think because you're tithing that now you're going to get what you want. That's a false idea that you have to give in order to receive. The minister uses, he perverts the Bible, or he perverts the Quran to suit his or her need, which is usually financial or egotistical. Again, operating out of the R complex and the mammalian brain. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this has been food for thought. If you like this video, hit the like button. I do have a Patreon campaign, and for as little as $1 a month, you can contribute to that and you'll get a shout out on my broadcast. And also, as usual, please subscribe to my channel and share the video with family and friends, and let's get this revolution started, because when you share it, if two or more agree, so shall it be. Amen Ra.